team, I hope you're all well. Today I am here to do the mid-year book freakout tag and I am looking forward to it. I think I've done this every year for the last few years, I can't remember. But I am looking forward to it this time round. It's taken me a while to get to this point to be able to film this, to be honest. So it is going up in July. I was aiming for like towards the end of June, I think. Regardless, it is what it is. But I'm excited to go through these questions with you. There are a lot of repeating answers for me, which, you know, is fine, I think. But in total, so far at this point this year, I have read 112 books. I'm doing all right, to be perfectly honest. I'm over halfway of my goal. My goal is 200. So I'm over halfway and I'm doing pretty good. And I do think that I still will reach that goal of 200, if not go past it. So that's great news. So question one is, what is the best book of the year so far for me? And the answer to that question is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. Did you see that coming? I went into this book earlier on this year thinking the only reason that I'm reading this is to find out A, what all the TikTok girlies are talking about, and B, why is this book over 800 pages. The UK version is over 800 pages. The US version, well, this US version anyway, is 600 pages. So it's, you know, looking significantly smaller than the UK version. But I wanted to know what a contemporary romance was doing over 800 pages. So I decided to read it and find out, and let me tell you, that book deserves its 800 pages. I would have read another 200 pages of it. I'm not joking. I would have read another 200 pages. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Following Shannon and Johnny, it is set in Ireland and it is so good. Johnny is a rugby player. Johnny's a rugby player at school. Shannon goes to this normal school, but she's being bullied horrifically at school, and her mum ends up finding a way of getting her sent to this private school where the only two girls that she's friends with, the only two people that she's friends with, go. So she ends up managing to go to this private school, and on day one she ends up finding herself in a situation where she gets hit in the face with a rugby ball and panned out on the field, and Johnny is the one that did it by accident. Now she immediately thinks when she comes back round that it was on purpose, and shit, she's being bullied on day one. It turns out that's not the case. Johnny convinces her that that is not the case. He has to try and convince her mum, who will not be convinced, and she is like, fucking hell, she's already being bullied. Takes her home. It turns out her home life is not much better, to be perfectly honest. Her dad is an asshole. She has three younger brothers and an older brother, and it is not a good, she's got two older brothers actually, one of them doesn't live there anymore. It's not a good home life, and the relationship starts to build. Friendship first, very much so a slow build. The friendship starts to build between Johnny and Shannon, and then it becomes something more, and we get more into Shannon's home life, we get more into Johnny's home life. Not all is as it seems with either of them, despite that they come from two very different classes of family, and it's just such a beautiful story, and I absolutely loved it. I sobbed for the entire last chapter of this book, 20 minutes after I finished it, and then had a meltdown because all I wanted to do was go straight into Keeping 13. And I just fucking loved it. These two characters, Johnny and Shannon, have burrowed themselves inside of me, and now they live there. They have made themselves at home within me. I'm not joking. I am obsessed. I just wanted to be Shannon's big sister and look after her and make sure that she was okay, and I was just so concerned by the end of this book. It was imperative I went into Keeping 13. So the next, this got a 10 on Core by the way. 10s across the board. A book has never ever done that before with me. Never. There was not a single thing wrong with this book, not one. The pacing, the writing, the relationship between the two people, there was nothing wrong with it. Not a single thing was wrong with it. I loved it. It was incredible. A 10 on Core. So the next question is the best sequel you've read so far in 2024, which is obviously, naturally, Keeping 13. I did in fact go straight into it, and I did pick this one up, and I'm so glad that I did, because it was imperative. I needed to know what happened at the end. I was incredibly concerned for these characters. I know they're fictional, it's not the point. I was incredibly concerned. It was imperative I went into Keeping 13, so that's exactly what I did. This got a 9.86 on Core. Did nothing wrong, just like Keeping 13, it did nothing wrong. But for me, sorry, just like it did in Binding 13, it didn't do anything wrong, but I loved Binding 13 just a smidge more than I did love Keeping 13, and I wanted to reflect that in my core pile rating, so it got just less than the 10 that Binding 13 did. Incredible series, and I'm obsessed with it so far. I haven't continued on with the Boys of Tommen series yet, but it is my intention by the end of the year to hopefully be up to date with this series. I do have the rest on my shelf, so Saving 6, Redeeming 6 and Taming 7, and it is my intention to be up to date. I am worried that I'm going to get to the end of Taming 7 though and then be stuck with what to do with my life. Honestly. I fucking love this series, and it was not on my bingo card to read to read a contemporary of this length, and B, to get 10s across the board. It was not on my bingo card for that to happen this year, but here we are. Loved them. Fantastic. Okay, next we have a new release that you haven't read yet, but you really want to. I have like 4 on my knee because I really want to get to them and I haven't had chance to do so yet. So some of them are new releases in the sense that they've come out in the last couple of months, but not immediately, whereas like one of them is an immediate new release, and that is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is on my July TBR. Whether or not I get to it in July, I don't know, but it is my July-August buddy read with my patrons. So if I don't get to it in July, it will be in my August TBR as well. This is absolutely stunning and I'm obsessed with it. So I'm very excited about picking this one up. It's a fantasy romance, there's dragons in it. I'm assuming it's going to be political. I don't know anything else about it. When the Moon Hatch will transport you into a world filled with magic dragons and a love that blazes through the ages. Sign me up. With a gorgeous map as well. Stunning. Very excited about reading this one. I also have Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff, which is the second one in this series. I loved Empire of the Vampire and I wasn't anticipating loving it as much as I did last year. It was so fucking good. But I am highly anticipating this one, and I just, again, have not found the time to pick it up. But this is the Illumicrate edition and it's so beautiful. I have the Waterstones edition as well, and I'm very excited about picking this one up. I just have not had a chance to do so yet. I'm very excited to get back into Gabriel's story and find out more about what happened with him. So very excited about this one. Then I do have Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is the Waterstones version. I also have the Afterlight version. I love Emily Henry's romances, and this is the only one so far that I haven't read of hers yet. And I'm very looking forward to it. I've heard incredible things, and I've heard a lot of people have preferred this one to her last one, which was Happy Place, and which I will say has been my least favourite of hers so far, and is the only one so far that has gotten 4 stars because I've given everything else 5 stars in her romance genre that she's done so far. So again, looking forward to this one. And then the last one is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I've only just recently read Yours Truly, which was last year's release, so I haven't yet had a chance to get to this one, but I do hope to get to it this summer and hopefully give it a read. Again, Abby Jimenez is a 5-star author for me. I have never given her anything less than 5 stars. In fact, she's probably my highest rated romance author of all time, and I am very much so looking forward to this, anticipating it being a 5-star read. Okay, number 4 is most anticipated release for the rest of the year. Again, I have a few, so we're just going to go through them, but we have Reckless by Lauren Roberts, which is currently on its way to me. The release date for this is today. I think Waterstones have been a little bit late with letting it go, but later than they usually are. Usually I get them a day or two early, but its release date is today when I'm filming this, the 2nd of July if I remember correctly, and I'm very much so looking forward to it. I've really enjoyed Powerless and I wasn't anticipating doing so, so I'm really looking forward to reading it. I haven't read Powerful yet and I really need to. I think what I might do though is once Reckless comes in, reread Powerless, read Powerful, and then read Reckless, because I read Powerless and then I read Lilac a month or 2 after, and I feel like the two have crossed over in my mind just ever so slightly, so I feel like I need a refresher and I need to reread Powerless, and I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. So Powerless, Powerful, and then Reckless when it comes in, but I am very much so anticipating Reckless. Then I've got Clown in Cornfield 3, Church of Friendo by Adam Cesar. I am so much looking forward to this one. I don't like clowns. I fucking hate clowns. I've not always disliked clowns actually. As a kid, clowns did not bother me in the slightest. It's so funny how when you're a child, things that terrify adults for some reason or another. Clearly watch too many horror movies. Don't bother kids. Clowns, porcelain dolls, just dolls in general, toy dolls in general, you know, things like that don't bother kids. Mr. Blobby really bother adults. I can't stand Mr. Blobby now. He freaks me out. If I see him on the TV, I've got to turn it off. Clowns, don't like him. Can't go to the circus anymore. Even if I see one in the street doing an advert for a shop, I have to cross the road. I have done that in Barcelona. I did it once in Barcelona and my friend was laughing her head off at me while she stayed on the same side of the road and I had to cross over. I couldn't do it. I was terrified. Just a normal circus clown. It wasn't a horrible clown, and it's all because I watched it many a moon ago, and I've never got over it since. So Clown in a Cornfield, don't like clowns. However, I picked the first one up a couple of years ago maybe, and I was anticipating having to put it down. I was trying to get into my horror and I was like, okay, listen, what's more frightening than A, trying to get into horror when I don't like horror, and B, trying to read a book about a clown. So I did it and I fucking loved it. It was so good. It has like the vibes. It's a proper slasher book and it's got the vibes of like Scream and Halloween, which is always what I'm looking for in my horror books. So I absolutely loved it. Very much so excited that there's a third one coming out because I love the second one as well. So I'm really anticipating that one. Then we've got An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson. I'm really looking forward to this one. I've read Alexis Henderson's previous two books, which is The Year of the Witching and also vampire book, House of Hunger, and I really enjoyed them both. I think I like The Year of the Witching just a little bit more. I think I gave that one 5 stars and maybe House of Hunger 4.5, but I've really loved her books so far, so I'm very excited about Academy of Liars. I don't know anything about it, not a single thing. I'm going to assume it might be dark academia, but other than that I know nothing else about it. But am I very much so anticipating reading it? Yes, I'm very anticipating reading it just because it's Alexis Henderson. That's the only reason. So very excited about that one indeed. Then we have The Butcher Games by Elena Urquhart. I read The Butcher and the Wren when it came out a couple of years ago and absolutely loved it. Now, I'd never heard of Elena Urquhart. I'd never heard of the Morbid podcast before, but I do like me a good true crime podcast. I listen to Case File a lot. I've been listening to it for years now, but I had never heard of Morbid podcast. So anyway, I picked this book up and obviously it was mentioned, the Morbid podcast. Anyway, only recently in the last few months have I started listening to Morbid and I really enjoy it. Really like it. Love the way that Elena and the other woman that's on with her, they do the podcast and they discuss the stories and stuff. It's very good. If you like your true crime podcasts, I would recommend it. But I am ever since reading Butcher and Wren, very much so been looking forward to a sequel. It is a serial killer and oh my god, what does she do? She's is it pathologist? You know, the people that deal with the dead bodies? She's one of those. And the serial killer is in communication with her. I think she's been dealing with a case with this serial killer for a while, if I remember correctly. They're in communication. We're following both POVs and it's very interesting. I thought it was very well done and I really enjoyed it. So ever since, I've been anticipating a sequel and we're finally getting one this year and I'm really excited and I cannot wait to read it. And then we've got Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. I've been seeing this around everywhere. The cover for this is fucking adorable and I'm really excited about it. Again, don't know the full ins and outs about it, but I think it's to do with a witch. I think she's been struggling with her magic, or she's not used her magic for a really long time and now she's trying to get back into it or something. Can't remember the full ins and outs, but if I remember correctly, it's been pitched as The Secret Society for Irregular Witches meets Talia Hibbert. I'm sure I've seen that tagline for this book somewhere and it makes me very excited because I fucking love Talia Hibbert and I loved Secret Society for Irregular Witches. So yeah, very excited about that one coming out as well later on this year. Question 5 is my biggest disappointment of 2024 so far. Does anybody want to throw a guess in now before I say this? Can you remember what it might be? In fact, do put your guesses in the comments down below because I'd be so interested to know if you think there is something else that trumps this, because sometimes I might mention something and I might not make a mention of it in my core pile sheet as a DNF, and why I DNF'd it. This one is the one that's come up, and it's the one that sits solely in the forefront of my mind, in all honesty, is my biggest disappointment of the year. But maybe I've mentioned something else. But Jasper Vale by Devney Perry. I'm fucking furious about it. I'm still livid about the whole thing, I'm not gonna lie. This is like book 4 or 5 in the Eden series, and I've really committed to this series. Like, I was reading one of the Eden series a month, and then I was reading one of the Chestnut Spring series a month, and I was loving them so much. I loved Indigo Ridge. My favourite one was Juniper Hill so far. No, was it Juniper Hill? The green one. I'm fairly certain that was Juniper Hill. And we had Garnet Flats wasn't great, the one before Jasper Vale, but then we got to Jasper Vale. Fuck me, Jasper was fucking insufferable. I couldn't stand him, and I think Devney Perry has done Eloise so dirty, and I hate it. I hate it so much. I haven't been able to continue with the series. I still have Crimson River, and I've still got the latest one, which is Sable Peak, and I've not been able to go back to them since because I've still been so frustrated about Jasper Vale. It is literally my biggest disappointment of the year, and I'm so mad about it. Really mad about it. So yeah, Jasper Vale, let me know in the comments down below if you didn't see that one coming and you thought it was going to be something else. Okay, biggest surprise of the year. I have a couple, so we're going to do these in order of which I read them. We have The Bonesmith by Nikki Powell-Preto. Now, a number of reasons why this is the biggest surprise, one of my biggest surprises of the year. This got 5 stars. This has been on my shelves, I thought, for a few years. It's actually only been since August last year, but I thought it had been longer. I thought it had been a few years because it came from Fairly, and I thought it had come in a few years ago. It hadn't, so it's not been on my shelves as long as I thought, but it came in the YA box, so that's why I've been avoiding it, because I don't read YA fantasy anymore. And not long after this came in, I'm fairly certain I cancelled the YA box with Fairyloot because there was no point in me getting it anymore. I wasn't reading the books. So biggest surprise, because it's down as a YA fantasy. I actually think that age range is incorrect, and I know there's a lot of people on TikTok trying to cancel the whole why are we bothering with new adult blah blah blah, it should be YA or adult, and I think you're wrong. Hear me out. I think that there are some books that just don't seem to fit in the YA category. They're older than YA, but they aren't adult, and that's why we need adult. There is a gap in the market for the age range of, I would say, 17, 18 through to around maybe 24, 25. You know, like uni age in the UK anyway. College age maybe in the States, or uni age in the States. I don't know what the age ranges are in the States. Around that age range, that gap needs filling, because there is not, I wouldn't say there is a fine, well, there is a fine line between YA and adult, I would say, but I think that line, I just think it can be filled with new adult, and I think that that's what this age range should be. I would have picked this up so much sooner if it was down as new adult, so much sooner. And for me, it read so much older than YA, but not adult. There were still some moments of, for me, like cringe ever so slight, or childishness ever so slightly, that you wouldn't necessarily get out of an adult book. New adult, that is where this should be pegged. Similarly with the likes of The Crimson Moth. There's a few YA books that have really shocked me actually this year that have been pitched as YA and are not in the slightest YA. This being one of them. So that was why I was shocked about this, not in no way, shape or form. And then I had a little bit of a crisis, because I thought, shit, am I getting back in my YA fantasy era? And I don't think I am. I don't think I'm getting back in my YA era in the slightest. I am in my new adult era. That's what's going on here. It's just that they're being marketed wrong. So for me, new adult, 100%. I fucking love this. This was absolutely fantastic and shook me to my core. I did not anticipate having this 5-star read on my shelves, ready and waiting for me, and just sitting there going, just pick us up. Just pick us up. The age range is a lie. Pick us up. That's what happened here. Anyway, shook me to my core. And then because this has the tagline of Gideon the Ninth met the White Walkers, from Game of Thrones, I then picked up Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, which I had a copy of this from Illumicrate when it first came in the Illumicrate box years and years and years ago. I unhauled it without reading it. Very glad I did that because I would have hated it in the moment. Right now though, I think I'm old enough to understand that I'm not supposed to know what the fuck is going on in this book. And that is fine. I lived through the vibes of this and it was outstanding. The vibes got me through this book because I truly don't know what happened in this book. I don't understand, and that's okay because that's how it's meant to be. So if you're picking this up, you're getting through it and you're like here and you're going, the fuck is going on? And then you're getting here and you're going, I still don't know what's going on. I'm going to DNF this book. Don't do it. So long as you're live, laugh, loving, live, laugh, loving and having the time of your life and just laughing along with Gideon and Harrow, keep going. Just keep, because that's honestly, you're here for the vibes and that's it. Doesn't matter if you don't get it. You're not dumb. You're not supposed to get it. Loved it. 4.5 stars. It's down on Corpilers at the moment. I think that's going to change to 5, but it was a surprise. I wasn't expecting it in the slightest. Okay, favourite new author. So this is an author that I haven't read from previously to this year, and maybe I've read 1 or 2 of their books, so I've just really fucking loved their writing style and would read anything else that they write from here on out. So naturally, Chloe Walsh. I've read 2 of her books so far this year and both of them have gotten 5 stars, so I'm very intrigued to read more from her. Obviously. We have Tamsin Muir, again, read 2 of her books. Really loved them. Would definitely read more from her in the future. I have Nona the Ninth ready and waiting to go. I am very much so anticipating Electo the Ninth and anything else that she writes in the future. I don't know if this is the only series she's written actually. Yeah, it is. I would read anything else she writes in future, especially if she's going to confuse the shit out of me but have me vibing at the same time. Sign me up. And then also Kayla James, who is a new to me author. I read Lights Out earlier on this year, gave it 5 stars, fucking loved it. She is an indie author and I am obsessed with this book, and I'm very much so anticipating the next one in the series, which is coming out later on this year. So very excited about that one. Will literally read anything else she writes. Anything else she writes. There are a lot of other authors that I have read for the first time this year, but I'm still on the fence about whether or not I would read immediately from them. Albeit, after saying that, to be fair, Bryn Weaver, Butcher and Blackbird, I do have Leather and Lark. I know that she's done other stuff before this though, I'm fairly certain that she has anyway, so I would need to have a look maybe. Oh yeah, she's got a whole bunch of shit here. But I don't know if I'm that interested in going back and reading any of these, to be perfectly honest. So I don't know if that she would count. Oh, you know who would though? Brooke Montgomery. I read Fall With Me, which is the 3rd in this series, the Sugarland Creek series, and I've immediately bought the first 2 in the series, so I can go back and read them. But I would definitely read anything else from Brooke Montgomery. I think she's written a whole bunch. Oh no, that's just the Sugarland Creek series. I assume she's done a whole bunch of other stuff as well, but I would definitely read from Brooke Montgomery again. Okay, number 8 is newest fictional crush. I have again a few for this one. So we have Bjorn from A Fate Inked in Blood. Sign me up. The whole time I had Uhtred in my head from The Last Kingdom while I was reading A Fate Inked in Blood for Bjorn the whole time. So yes. Also Ryder from Lights Out, which is really funny because in theory Ryder is based off of Charles Leclerc, who is an F1 driver. I'll show a picture of him here, and of all the drivers on the track, he is not my favourite. So I think it was his mannerisms, the way he acts, his personality more than anything that I was super attracted to with Ryder in this book. So definitely Ryder in this book, the way that he would treat Blake was top notch, top tier. I was obsessed, and yes, new book boyfriend for sure. Landon from Fall With Me by Brooke Montgomery, yes. Again, the way that he would treat Ellie, considering they were enemies, well, enemies to lovers, kind of rivals to lovers. She had a problem with him, he didn't have a problem with her. In fact, he was super into her. And even when she, you know, like she would pull him up on it sometimes and stuff, and the minute that he realised she was being deadly serious, he pulled back and he was like, okay, totally get it, you don't want to speak to me, I won't speak to you again, do not worry about it. And he stuck with it. But the way that he would treat her incredible. I just loved it, and amazing. Sign me up. And then last but not least, we have Rowan from Butcher and Blackbird. I loved this book. It was so good. Two serial killers who work separately but end up finding themselves with the same mark at the same time one day, and then they come together every year, once a year, to see who will win against a mark. And it was so funny. Rowan and Sloane, hilarious, but Rowan, to die for. To die for. Absolutely brilliant. I loved it so much. Okay, newest favourite character. Back to a Fae Inked in Blood, we've got Feyre. I just thought she was so incredibly strong, and just a beautiful, strong, headstrong. She had a couple of moments where she was completely fucking dumb, and some of the decisions she made were really, really dumb, but I also think it showed how sheltered she'd previously been and how much she didn't want to be in this situation she was in with this war. But I just loved her. I thought she was absolutely fantastic, and she was definitely someone I could get behind, and I thought she was great. Veronica Speedwell from A Curious Beginning, at the Veronica Speedwell series, fucking priceless. Absolutely incredible. I just love her. I think she's hilarious. I think that the way that she views women and the way that they are treated in her day and age, brilliant. I just love the feminism side of her. I love the way that she sticks up for herself, the way that she will stand up against men, and the way that she just plows through. How clever she is as well. Just everything about her is incredible, and I would love to be her friend. And then naturally we've got Gideon from Gideon the Ninth. Just again, she's not completely got it going on up here, do you know what I mean? But I think what I love about her is that I see myself in her. She's hilarious. She's very sarcastic. She will make a joke out of anything, even if it's not 100% appropriate. And she will also, you know, she's just the life and soul of the party. I might not be necessarily, but I do think that I can have a funny streak, and I will make things inappropriate when they shouldn't be. But she's missing a lot of information all of the time. She's not always clued in. She's got no clue what's going on. She's the most unreliable narrator, and I think that would be me. I do think that would be me. I think I would be the most unreliable narrator of any story, because I don't always know what the fuck is going on. I mean, most of the time it's because people aren't communicating with me properly, but it is what it is, you know what I mean? Gideon, I just loved her. I would love for her to be my best friend. I think we would rip into each other a little bit like Harrow and Gideon, to be honest, minus the sexual tension, but I think it would be really funny. I think we would either be insufferable to be around or people would live for it. But I love her. I think she's fantastic. Okay, a book that made me cry. Naturally, Binding 13, it did make me cry, but for the sake of not repeating myself again, and Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Backman. I read this one for my Katie Colson taste test. Boy, did I cry. I pretty much sobbed through this whole book. There is clips of me crying in that video. If you've not seen it yet, go and check it out. I sobbed. It's only small, but it is about dementia. And it's about this granddad sitting down with his grandson and having a conversation about dementia. But while he's having this conversation with his grandson, there are also parts of this book where he's having a conversation with his late wife about how to tell his grandson about the dementia and about the fact that he's forgetting things, and you know, about that. He's also having conversations with his own son, his grandson's father, about why they used to struggle so much with their relationship, and then about how, you know, they can help each other out now. And then we go back to the conversations with the grandson, where the grandson is trying to understand dementia, and then he's like, Granddad, what can I do to help you on days when you're struggling to remember? Like, is there something that I could maybe say that might help trigger you? Things like that. It's so beautiful, so beautifully well done, so just so heartbreaking and incredible. I just sobbed through the whole thing. It was such a beautiful book, and I'm so glad that Katie's finally forced me to pick this one up, because it's been on my shelves for so long, and I'm really glad she forced me to do so. So shout out to Katie for that. But yeah, I've sobbed at a few other books, but these two are definitely the most glaringly obvious. And then I did want to mention a different book than just Binding 13 that's been mentioned twice now. Book that made me happy. There's been a lot of books that have made me happy, I'm not gonna lie. But I think Lights Out for sure. I love F1. I'm a big F1 fan. I have been since I was a child. I've seen, you know, I am a Lewis Hamilton fan. I've been a Lewis Hamilton fan since he started in F1. And I've just always loved F1. So F1 romances are always a thing that I will reach for, but I've never found one that just quite hit the spot for me until this. And I feel incredibly lucky that I ended up managing to get an arc of this and was able to help promote this book, because I think it was so incredibly well done. A lot of my patrons have picked this. We are like F1 based on Patreon. A lot of my patrons have since picked this one up because I did mention it to them and highly recommend it, and they've all really enjoyed it as well. Had a couple of good conversations with Kayla, and I'm very excited about her next one. And I'm really hoping that it's all going well for her with this. But I just loved this. I think that it did a really good job at melding two of my favourite things, which is romance books and F1 together. I think Kayla's very clearly an F1 fan and she knows what she's talking about with the F1 things. And I just think that she did a really good job with it. The relationship between Blake and Ryder was incredible. The fact that they are teammates, the fact that we have a female driver on the grid, phenomenal. Loved that. Also, actually, on that basis, Blake is one of my new favourite characters as well. Very strong, very, just such an incredible character, you know, and a female F1 driver. Will we ever see that in my lifetime? I'm not sure, but incredible. Absolutely loved this one. It was very good and did make me very happy. There were several times where I was kicking my feet and giggling like a little girl. I did cry as well. But also the A Curious Beginning by Deanna Rayborn, which is the first in the Veronica Speedwell series. This book had me laughing my head off. I just thought it was hilarious. I fucking love Veronica. I just think she's great, and Stoker as well, and the banter and the bickering between the two of them. They're like an old married couple and I love it. I am living for it. I'm very excited to continue on with this series. Again, shout out to Katie for making me pick this up finally. Okay, most beautiful book that you've bought / received this year. I have 3 to talk you through. I've got a lot of books that I've ended up with this year, but I think these 3 are my personal favourites that I've gotten this year. Obviously there has been a phenomenal amount of books that have come through this year that have been absolutely beautiful. These 3 are my favourites though. So we do have the Waterstones copy of When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is absolutely stunning. Like, this colour palette is like my favourite colour palette of all time. I'm obsessed. I love the colour blue. This, absolutely stunning. And then underneath the dust jacket as well. Very simple, but I think very, very beautiful. I know that Ferroloot have done a special edition of this one. Lot Library did as well. I am gutted I've not got the Lot Library one, but I just think that this is absolutely beautiful. I think it's stunning and I'm very excited to give it a read. So, and I know that the arcs for this were stunning as well. There were like 2 different ones and I know that they were beautiful as well. So that one. I also have, which I know I've mentioned it a couple of times, but A Fate Inked in Blood. This is the Ferroloot edition. This is the Ferroloot edition. I do have the Waterstones one as well. It's not as pretty as this one, I don't think, but this is the Ferroloot edition and I think it's absolutely stunning. The sprayed edges are gorgeous, and then on the end papers we do have Feyre. Underneath the dust jacket it looks like this with Bjorn and Feyre, and then on the flip side, oh, we do have Bjorn as well. And I just think it's absolutely stunning and I did love this book. So there is that one as well. And then my third one is one that I've recently gotten and I ended up getting it second hand on Vinted because I was not part of the subscription for this one. It's come from the Broken Binding and it is The Martian by Andy Weir. One of my favourite books of all time and one of my favourite movies of all time. One of the best book to movie adaptations I've ever seen in my life. And I'm obsessed with this book and this is absolutely stunning. Look at those sprayed edges. I am Obsessed. This is probably my prettiest book on my entire shelves. Other people will disagree with that. Other people will say, for example, the Divine Rivals series, the Fairy Loot ones that I have, probably their prettiest. But for me, this is the prettiest one I own, and I think it helps that it's one of my favourite books of all time. So, you know, it's all subjective. But stunning, absolutely stunning. I love it. Very excited I managed to finally get my hands on this, and I'm obsessed. Okay, last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? This is a tough one because there is a lot. Obviously the ones that I've already mentioned to you that I want to get to by the end of the year that I haven't got to yet. There is those, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's coming in that I would like to get to by the end of the year. But I think the ones that I should mention are my 24 books in 2024, which is split into two. So I've got 12 books from 12 friends and then 12 priority from myself. So I have done a graphic. The ones that are outlined in white I've read. I've only read 4 from each of the categories, from each of the 2. So we're going to go through them very quickly. So I have read Yellowface, which I DNF'd. I haven't fully read it. I've DNF'd it partway through. I couldn't stand the main character. She was insufferable and I didn't like it. And I'm not a literary fiction girly, obviously. So I DNF'd that one. Then we have Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang, which I have not read yet. These Hollow Vows, I have not read yet. Play of Shadows by Sebastian D. Castell, and East of the Sun, West of the Moon by Jackie Morris, still not read. We've got The Arctic Railway Assassin, which is the final book in the Adventures on Train series by M.G. Leonard and Sam Sedgman, which I gave 5 stars. I loved it. Then we've got The Lightning Struck Heart by T.J. Klune, which I still have not read yet and I really need to get to. A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, which I read and gave 3.5 stars to. I gave the second one 4 stars. It was a good series. I enjoyed it. The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. Alicia, I couldn't tell you who else has given me the rest of these books off the top of my head, but Alicia, I don't know if I'm ever going to forgive you for the Wheel of Time, honestly. Fucking love you, but honestly in 2025, please do better. I haven't read it yet, obviously. Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin, not read yet, or Bunny by Amona Ward, but I have read Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson and I did give it 5 stars. Caitlin gave me that one, I remember that one. She gave me that one and I gave it 5 stars. I loved it, it was so good. So that is my 12 books from 12 friends. And then my top 12 priority, honestly, it was the majority of these books were books that have been on my shelves for a real long time. And I'm kind of at a point where if I don't get to them this year, I'm just going to unhaul them because I'm sick to death of seeing them. So Layla by Colleen Hoover, The Holdout by Graham Moore, Hollow Kingdom, and also Gallant by V. Schwab, I have not read yet. I do still need to get to. The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starlin in June, I did DNF. I wasn't enjoying it and I was having a really bad time with it. So I have DNF'd it, but it's off my shelves now, so it's done. The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, I gave 5 stars. I fucking loved it, it was so good. Then we've got Bear Town by Frederick Batman, The Grey Bastards by Jonathan French, Rage of Dragons by Evan Winters, Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, which I have not yet read. And then we've got Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, which I gave 4 stars. Really enjoyed, so glad to have finished that series off. I really enjoyed the Greenbound Saga, it was great. And then The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I read part 1, I got partway through part 2 and DNF'd it. I was sick to fucking death. I didn't know what was going on. I was really annoyed with myself for A, having taken so long to get to that point, and B, then making the decision to DNF. I am very much in this mode where I need to like all of Brandon Sanderson's books and I just wasn't, and I don't know why I held on to this theory for so long that I need to do this, because I didn't like Mistborn Era 2. I loved Mistborn Era 1. I will reread those books forever. Same with Elantris. Didn't like Mistborn Era 2, didn't like Warbreaker. So I don't know why I forced myself to finish Warbreaker so that I could go on to The Way of Kings. And then I got partway through part 2 of The Way of Kings and I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't like it. I wasn't enjoying it. So that is me done with the Stormlight Archives of Brandon Sanderson. And I'm still really sad about it, but I think we need to be kinder to ourselves in thinking that we have to like everything from an author that we've previously liked everything from before. Clearly I haven't previously liked everything from Brandon Sanderson before, but I think we've got to be better at being nicer about that. We're not going to like everything. If they constantly wrote the same things over and over again, there's nothing wrong with it. For example, Ali Hazelwood, albeit she is diverting a little bit with Bride, for example, which I loved. I thought it was fantastic. If they want to have a template of what their book is going to look like and they kind of repeat that forward, absolutely fine. They are constantly going to have fans with their books, which is great. Whereas Brandon Sanderson is churning out that much stuff every single year. Not everything is going to be the same. Like, how can Mistborn Era 1 and Mistborn Era 2 be so different, but the settings are so different, the characters are so different? I loved Era 1, fucking hated Era 2, and I forced myself through it and did not enjoy myself too much. Same with like Elantris, Warbreaker. The magic systems are so different, the characters are so different. Loved Elantris, fucking hated Warbreaker. Again, forced myself through it so that I could continue on to the Stormlight Archives, in which I've DNF'd at the first hurdle. So yeah, I am 4 out of 12 for my top 12 priority and 4 out of 12 for my 12 books from 12 friends. I should be doing better at this point. I should be 6 at least on both of them. I am hoping to sort that out and get through them. We will have to see, but these are kind of the priority books that I need to get through now for the end of the year, and I am hoping that I will be able to do that. We will have to see what happens with that, but yeah, I just thought I'd do them little graphics for you. I hope you liked. But yeah, so that is my mid-year freak out tag. This has gone on way longer than I anticipated, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to cut a lot out, because I reckon I've probably got about 45 minutes of footage so far. Don't know why it's this long. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Chat to me in the comments down below. What has been one of your favourite book of the year, one of your worst books of the year, a big surprise, a big disappointment, what made you cry, what made you happy, what else have you still got to get to? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you have enjoyed, and I shall see you in whatever comes next. Bye for now.